Right now, you're warm, and you haven't thought about it once today. There's a thermostat on the wall you can nudge up with one finger, a radiator clicking on in the next room. Hot water the moment you turn a tap. Warmth is just there, like the air. Step outside on the coldest night of the year, and for a moment, you meet real cold, the kind with teeth. Your fingers stop working. Your breath turns to smoke in front of your face. Then you head back in, and the wall hands your warmth right back. That thermostat feels like it's always been there. It hasn't. For almost all of human history, no one could heat a home at all. Central heating only became normal in the middle of the last century. Your own grandparents may have grown up without it, and your ancestors had no door to close on that cold either. For 300,000 years, it wasn't a bad night. It was the world people woke up in. So with no heating, no warm walls, no coat off a shelf, just stones, bones, and each other, how did they survive that? Winter after winter. And we're not talking about the kind of cold you fix with a coat and a warm car. This was something else entirely. On the harshest nights, in the frozen lands people lived in, the temperature could plunge past 40 below, cold enough to freeze exposed skin in minutes. We picture the people who lived through it as shivering brutes in a cave, barely making it to spring. But they weren't barely making it. They were spreading, pushing further than any humans before them, into lands that should have killed them. And they did it with a handful of inventions so good, you're still using every one of them today. It starts with the first thing between you and the cold. Not a house, not a fire. What you're wearing. Look down at what you have on. Layers, seams, a zipper, a hood, cut to your shape so the cold can't find a way in. That idea, clothing that actually fits, was one of the great survival breakthroughs. Before that, clothing was a hide draped over your shoulders. It took the edge off, but the cold still slipped through every gap. The fix was almost absurdly small. A needle with a hole punched in one end. The oldest ones we found carved from bone came out of a cave in Siberia, around 40 to 50,000 years old. With one, you could sew, turn loose skins into something tailored, with sleeves and seams that sealed shut. And you could layer, soft fur against the skin, a tougher hide facing the wind. You weren't just enduring the winter anymore. You were carrying your own warmth with you, wrapped around your body. That coat by your door? Same invention. First stitched from bone and hide tens of thousands of years ago. But clothes only get you so far. Push out onto the open plains near the ice, and there are no caves to duck into. Barely a tree for miles. So people built their own shelter, from the only big thing the land offered, the animals themselves. In what's now Ukraine, archaeologists dug up the remains of homes made almost entirely of mammoth bones. Hundreds of them in a single hut. Jawbones stacked into walls, tusks arching overhead, skulls sunk into the ground as footings. The whole dome wrapped in hide. One of these, at a place called Mezherich, is roughly 18,000 years old. Picture it, a shell of bone and skin, a fire glowing inside, a family warm while the frozen world screamed outside. They couldn't find shelter from the Ice Age, so they built it out of the giants they hunted. Then there's the one you'd expect, fire. And yes, it kept them warm. But its real power in the Ice Age was quieter. Cooking. Cooked food hands your body far more usable energy than raw. Take an egg. Cooked, it's about 90% digestible. Raw, barely half. A gap the Harvard scientist Richard Wrangham has built a whole theory around. Roast a piece of meat and you unlock calories you'd otherwise pass straight through. And when you're burning fuel just to stay warm, every extra calorie is the difference between making the night and not. Fire didn't only warm them from outside, it fed them from within. You still light a version of it every time you switch on the stove. A good hunt brought in more than anyone could eat before it spoiled. And out there, wasting food could kill you by spring. So they became experts at making it last. They dried it and smoked it over the fire. They dug pits and packed meat away under rock and earth. And they used the one thing they had endless supplies of, the cold itself. Meat sunk beneath an icy pond could stay good for 6 months or more, as long as the ice held. An autumn hunt wasn't just dinner. It was a stockpile, put by to carry a family across the hungry end of winter. They turned the cold from an enemy into a tool. It's the same instinct behind the freezer humming in your kitchen right now. All of that still needs fuel for the body. In that cold, just staying alive drained calories at a frightening rate. And the richest fuel of all was fat. Here's the strange part. You can eat all the lean meat you want and still starve. Even modern explorers who tried to live on lean rabbit learned that the hard way. Like the Arctic explorer Vilhjalmur Stefansson, who got dangerously ill from it and recovered only once fat was back on his plate. Push protein too high with no fat and it turns toxic. Nausea, weakness, and eventually death. So the real prize was never the muscle. It was the fat, the fatty cuts most of us trim off today. And that pull you still feel toward rich fatty food, it's not a flaw. It's the same hunger that carried them through the Ice Age, wired so deep we've never shaken it. But that same limit on lean meat may have handed us the greatest ally we've ever had. In the deep cold, the animals people hunted were themselves half-starved, lean, stringy, stripped of fat, which left hunters with piles of meat their own bodies couldn't safely use. But another animal could. Wolves can thrive on lean meat for months, so the scraps that were almost useless to a human were a feast to a wolf lingering at the edge of the firelight. Feed a wolf through a hard winter, and something begins. It's one leading idea from the researcher Maria Lahtinen for how, somewhere in the Ice Age, wolves slowly became dogs, the first animal we ever tamed. A hunting partner, a guard in the dark, a body-warm heater on the coldest nights. The dog asleep at your feet right now is the oldest friendship we have, struck in the cold, tens of thousands of years ago. None of it, not the needle, not the fire, not the dog, would have been enough alone. The greatest survival tool of all was each other, on your own, even with furs and a fire. One twisted ankle or one failed hunt could be the end. In a group, it wasn't. Food was shared, so an empty-handed day didn't mean starving. The band was your insurance against the worst. The old, the sick, the very young weren't left behind. They were carried because a person knew things, where the herds crossed, how to read a coming storm, worth far more than the meat they could catch. And the web reached further than any single camp. Across Ice Age Europe, tools and shells and glassy black obsidian traveled hundreds of miles, hand to hand, proof that distant groups were linked, trading, and sharing what they knew. So a better way to sew a seam or trap a hare didn't die with one clever person. It spread. No single human could beat the Ice Age. A connected web of them could. So go back to that shivering figure in the cave, the one we started with, barely hanging on, waiting for spring. He was never the victim of this story. He was its inventor. The people who lived through the Ice Age didn't just endure it. They outthought it. One breakthrough at a time. Tailored clothes, homes of bone, fire turned into a kitchen, food stored against the dark, a wolf brought in from the cold, and above all, each other. And here's what should stay with you. You never left that world behind. You're still living inside what they built. The coat on your chair, the roof over your head, the stove in your kitchen, the freezer humming down the hall, the dog asleep at your feet, even the pull toward a warm, rich meal. Everyone is a thread running straight back to someone at the edge of the ice, refusing to freeze. So the next time you nudge that thermostat up with one finger and the warmth arrives without a thought, remember what it really is. Not a given, an inheritance, hard-won, handed down across thousands of generations of people who would not give up. And you are the one they were trying to keep warm.